What happens when two successful entrepreneurs get together for a drink? They talk shop, of course. So grab your favorite cocktail and sit alongside Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso, two seasoned business leaders that have driven their own companies to success, as they share from their experience and dive deep into the secret sauce that can turn a company around. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, I'm Vince Moiso. I'm here with my friend Scott DeLong. This is the CEO Podcast. And today we want to cover the topic of strategic planning and really the importance of planning. And it's not, I think when people think about planning, you might, what comes to mind is forecasting or just looking forward to the next year or maybe looking backward. Sometimes you're in review. Really, the answer is it's all above. I mean, all the above. You've got to look backwards. You've got to look forwards a little bit, and you've got to plan for what's next. More importantly, which is what we just did, really, with the CEO podcast. Right? It's just kind of a year in review. What worked, what didn't work, what we'd like to change, the feedback that we've received from listeners, and some of the lessons learned from various episodes that we've done, having guests, not having guests, these type of things. And so I think in this conversation, right, which when we talked about having this topic, it was practice what you preach, right? It's great. Are we going to put into practice all the stuff that we're talking about, and certainly the things that we're putting out on the airwaves?
I'm pretty sure we've done a podcast already on the process with strategic planning. However, what we thought we'd do this time is talk about what we went through, our own internal.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite topics. I love strategic planning.
Me too.
And what a lot of people miss from this, and we make sure that we don't, is yes, you got to have some forecasting, you got to have some year in review kind of stuff, but we also need to talk about the cultural aspects.
No
who
doubt.
We are, who do we serve, right? Who is our customer? And we had some revelations about that in our own conversation, right? So the CEO podcast sounds like we're only talking to CEOs. Well, that's not what we came up with.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that discussion. And actually, just so you know, it just wasn't Vince and I in the room. We brought our producer, John Miller, in as well, because we wanted to get some feedback from his point of view on critique on what we do here in front of the camera.
Yeah,
well.
frankly, I think he's got, I think he's really got his finger on the pulse. I think he has a very, very good understanding of the market and podcasts and really just a direct answer to what you're talking about here is you're talking about the why, right?
Yep.
And I think sometimes that reflection, when you go into a strategic planning session, specifically what we did is we dove into the why. Has the why changed? And I want to make this recommendation for listeners. If you've never watched it, I think it's the most watched TED Talk by Simon Sinek, which is Start With Why, right? And there's a book, right? I mean, it's an 18-minute TED Talk, but which is an easy watch on YouTube. But if you really want to go deeper, I recommend that you read the book. Really, it's just diving into the why. We asked a simple question as we said, has the why changed? I think when we started the podcast, it was formed organically from you and I sitting in a backyard drinking a beer and talking business and talking about business topics. And we looked at each other and we said, hey, let's share our experience. Let's share our knowledge. This should be a podcast. Is us having a good time, drinking a beer.
People are going to want to hear this.
Yeah,
stuff.
people are going to want to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And we both said when we sat down to write out the list of topics that we wanted to cover and really focus on, we both asked the question, what are we doing this for, right? What's the why? And ironically, we both answered in a very similar way, which is, hey, this is just really for fun. I mean, we just want to enjoy this. We want to enjoy the process. We want to enjoy the experience, and ultimately to get together with a friend, have a beer, and have a just a great discussion, a discussion of high value. Let's do it, okay? And then we discovered something slightly different.
Yeah, we did. So
when we went through this process,
what a lot of our topics were, we weren't just talking to our peers, people that own businesses or run businesses for other people. The EO, the YPO, the CEO kind of people. but a lot of our topics really related to that next level down.
Yeah.
Right. So we're trying to what we're trying to do is make sure that all CEOs understand the value of developing their people, and yet most of our topics we were talking to those people.
Yeah.
About their growth,
no
about
question.
How they can move forward and things that they can do, and so that made me start wondering a little bit about, if we had this avatar, and we did. I had 2 customers that this is who we're talking to. Come to find out, it wasn't who we were talking to. We're talking to people that work for those people.
Yeah.
And those are the comments that we're getting right now. Sure, we still have entrepreneurs hanging out and chatting us up, friends of ours who, or even people from outside telling us what we've done right and what we've done wrong, and hey, why don't you try some of this, and giving us ideas and suggestions. But really, the most impactful comments that we've gotten from the listeners in this past 6-7 months that we've been doing this has come from the next level down.
Well, we talked about, we had. I'll reference a couple of podcasts. One podcast we talked specifically about what it meant to be an executive. Whether you're talking about C-level or being a vice president or being in that type of role, is really what that responsibility was, what the job description even was, and how you can develop yourself, and certainly how you should be developed. And then there was a second follow-up podcast which talked about the managers. Just as you progress in a career and you move into management, in any form of management, what that meant. And ironically, in both of those cases, I had people in those specific roles reach out to me directly and say, wow, I just listened to your podcast, blew me away. That's been my life for the last 5 years. Yeah. That's been my life for the last decade. Thank you for, enlightening me. And I didn't have a single entrepreneur reach out to me, in the same way. Yeah. We had other we had other topical discussions. Transparency, right, was a big one. We talked about culture. Same thing. I had people that I knew from my past that I haven't heard from for a long time say, hey, I'm a manager in this business, and I just had all of my employees listen to this podcast. And I went, really? And it wasn't the entrepreneur, it wasn't the owner of the business. And it was really, over time, it was an interesting experience, so that when we jumped into our strategic planning session, we said, hey, we need to make a shift. Like, this is the audience. This is the audience that we're reaching, and I'm hearing it loud and clear.
Actually,
so
let's
make that change.
One of my coaching clients, a CEO of an organization, she's having her employees listen to this as part of their weekly process, which is really cool. So we've made a little bit of a shift. In fact, there's another one that we're actually planning on and working towards, and that's working with the nonprofit organizations. And there are some great leaders that are running nonprofits,
no doubt,
and they recognize they need to run things more like a business. Yeah. And I'm getting more and more people calling. In fact, I just did 2. A strategic plan for a small organization here, because the lady said, I learned so much listening to your podcast. Can you do this with us? Right. Yeah. And so we took them through a strategic planning process, and we only got through the culture piece, 4 hours, 4 hours, only go through mission, vision, and core values. And we barely got to the next steps. Right. Yeah. And those 4 hours are gone. Because
it just goes to show you how important that piece is, though.
And she was retiring, and she just wrote me the other day and said, "I'm back in. I'm not stopping now. I'm so excited again."
That's great.
So it's really cool. So we're gonna start doing some more podcasts. In fact, we've got a guest coming up, that a brand new CEO of a good sized nonprofit organization here in Orange County that we'll have on coming up as well. But so our focus has changed a little bit from just the entrepreneurs that we know that need to hear the message. You know what? Those people are already hearing it. They go to YPO, they go to EO, they go to Vistage.
Whatever the organization.
They're doing that kind of thing as well. Now, hearing it from an outside third party, sure, they'll listen to that as well. But it's their employees that are getting something out of this. So we're going to change the focus just a little bit, at least our mindset on the focus. The topics are going to be the same. It's all about leadership. It's all about communications. It's all about business development. It's all about those things that we've been doing, the things that we know from our experience of running organizations. We're going to talk about, but my mindset's going to change to who am I talking to now?
Yeah.
And it's that next level down that wants to learn and grow.
Well, I think the other shift too is, we started to recognize how powerful it was to have some of our guests. Like our guests it was really incredible. Scott Ampringham was one of the first that we had, and we talked about vulnerability. And I remember that hit me hard. Like that episode, I walked away from that. I said, wow, that was really powerful. And it was incredible as all three of us kind of shared through the way that we've experienced vulnerability in our lives, right? And then as we've had more and more guests on the podcast, it's crazy. Like how much I love hearing other people's story and when they share their own experience and what they're doing in the world and the power that they're bringing to the world. It's pretty incredible. So I think, one of the other shifts is we said, hey, we just need to have more guests, right?
Right.
And I think another one that we recognize too is we need more diversity, right? Like there's just got to be some diversity in not just the guests, but the topics and what we're talking about, who we're talking about, these type of things. And I think to me, those were the key takeaways from strategic planning. I mean, there's a lot of tactical stuff that we talked about, which I think is very important to the strategic planning process. I mean, you can't go into strategic planning and have that day without saying, the who, what, when, why, and where, right? It's like, okay.
Can't get caught in the weeds on planning the next steps. However, you need to understand the things that
have to get done, right?
Yeah.
You got to create the tasks and you got to assign the tasks and you got to assign a timeline to those tasks. Otherwise, you're just going to be running on a hamster wheel. We've talked about that before. So, and
we actually did that towards the end. In fact, the way we did this, just so you know, we got through this whole strategic piece, and then we recapped everything, and now we're having a secondary meeting that says, okay, here's what we need from who, by when, and we're just going to detail it out. Who's going to do what? How we're going to get these things done, and that's part two of the process that we're going through.
Well, to your point, like strategic planning doesn't always happen in a day, right? I think there's a misnomer that you can sit down for a day and everything's just going to get done and you can move on. It doesn't necessarily work like that. It can. It certainly can, but I think more often than not, it's a little bit of an evolution, right? Sure. From 1 week to the next, as you finish out a year and move into a new year, you've got to meet multiple times and really button that up. And to your point, is really make sure that you bring clarity and direction and timing and actions, and they get assigned. I think that's the most critical part, and we did that. I mean, it's just I love it. I mean, one is I'm a big fan, like you are, to strategic planning. I think without it, I don't see how businesses run. The fact is that there's many businesses that you and I have worked with and continue to work with that have in the past completely lacked planning.
They hire us for a reason.
And that's what they hire us, right? So we certainly bring that. Yeah. But my point being is we actually practice what we preach, right?
Yeah,
it's okay, great. We're not only teaching and coaching that, we're not only discussing it, but we're putting it into our own practice.
So, and that goes along with one of my philosophies is that if I can sit down and write a strategic plan and create a business plan, and I can just do all that and and start dishing things out. Yeah. And then we're only going to be as smart as I am at that point, right? I strongly believe, and I've said it a lot, we are smarter than me. And that's why I want other people to be part of that plan, because I may have a brilliant idea that you're going to make more brilliant, or show me the flaws in it. That's fine too.
Well, collaboration brings buy-in, right? So if you were to have sat down with your own plan for the CEO podcast in 2022, and then you just shot an email out to John and I and said, hey guys, this is what we're going to do. Then John and I are kind of scratching our heads going, okay, most of it probably makes sense, but I might have changed this, or I might have, done that a little bit different. So then there's no collaboration to that. Right. And what do we talk about with culture and the importance of culture? And we've talked about this not only as a topic of a podcast, but with many of the guests that we've had. It's people. I mean, what do we coach most on is just how important people are to a business and how critical they are to a business. And so if you don't collaborate, right, then it's really challenging to get total buy-in. What I can tell you is when you have buy-in, I will be 100% confident. I will bet money you will execute on that plan when you have total buy-in.
Well, I believe that 100% is that I like leadership over management. And if I do my leadership job well, I'm going to get buy-in, and I have to manage less.
Yeah.
I don't have to manage someone who it was their idea in the first place.
Yeah. When people are bought in, when they have a clear understanding of what needs to get done, and they know why it's getting done, right? The reason behind it, and they find purpose behind it, then you can totally empower them to do their job. It's just done. It's already done. And it leaves a lot of room for you to work on the business or travel or whatever, right? Like it leaves it open for you to do a lot of different things because you've empowered people to go do what they're hired to do.
Well, certainly things I didn't know when I was a young manager. I remember the first time I ever felt like I can go on vacation is when BlackBerry came out, right? And I could keep my hands on my business. It's like, oh my gosh. Now I go on vacation. Now I'm going surfing. I'm going to go do something fun because those people back there can handle it because they were part of the process and I got that buy-in.
Boy, I really don't want to sidebar, but you mentioned BlackBerry, and I was having this deep discussion with somebody the other day about like one of the worst like business blunders. I have to say BlackBerry's on the top 10 list there.
Well, yeah. So
and I did have a BlackBerry as well.
There was disruptive technology that came into place that blindsided them.
Yeah.
They didn't believe it. They just didn't believe it. And where are they today?
Great question.
They're on vacation.
Sorry, anyway. I digressed with that point. I couldn't help it. That's hey, look, there's a squirrel.
So I work with an entrepreneur once in a while. Okay. Listen, we had a lot of fun this year. It became work because both of us have a little bit of perfectionism built within us. We try not to let people see that too much, but it comes out. And we've gone through all kinds of changes from even the microphones that we're using, right? And the recording equipment and the cameras that we're using and the location and the sound and all the different things. And that's why one of the reasons we brought John in. I mean, John's really good at marketing, but he also has some technical expertise as well. So you've seen some podcasts before, if you watch this on YouTube, where we're out in the backyard because it's pretty cool out there. You got the waterfall and the ocean and all those things that are happening. And it pissed John off every single time we did that because a car went by and he had to try to edit out the car, right? So
but we like being in the backyard. So sorry, John.
The whole idea was sitting in the backyard with a beer.
But we like it.
And hanging out.
We like it.
So we might put him back into that. But now that it's winter and it's 55 degrees for us California, that's cold. We'll probably be indoors for a little while.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't mind it. But yeah, we've made these technological changes. But I would even bring up too is that we got some great feedback from some of the listeners about topics, and so we were able to shift very quickly and bring up some of those topics, and we appreciate that feedback a lot. In addition, I think we got some recommendations on some guests, and we were able to bring on those guests. We shifted toward a different venue. We had the suggestion of doing a completely different venue, and we had one of our guests host us at his actual business. And that was a lot of fun to experience that. So I would expect, a little bit more of that in 2022 for sure, as we reset a little bit and
I want to go
explore
to Russian
some
River
other
Brewery,
things. Stone Brewing Company, Russian River would be nice, and there's a handful of others that we've eyeballed.
We'll do a couple road trips. So one of the things that we're not having a beer on this one. It's for whatever reason we're just not. But that's one of the things that we actually even changed the name, changed the branding for season 2. We started thinking about that, and you grab a beer and have a conversation. That's still cool. However, what we're really doing is it's having conversations with entrepreneurs about opportunity.
Yeah.
So we've still got the CEO thing going on.
Yeah.
But we are going to rebrand based on that. We'll still have the picture with the beer in the hand, right? So we're not going.
Oh yeah, no.
We'll
I
still
think
do our thing.
It doesn't preclude us from having a beer and having fun. That's what this is all about, and we're not going to lose the essence of that. And I think
we even came with coffee one night, if I recall.
We did, we did. So I think it's just whatever the moment lends itself to is what that shift is. And I think even Scott, for you and I, this has evolved into something even greater. I mean, as we create this content and we talk about topics that we are very passionate about and that frankly we've put into practice. So I mean, we've used each other's businesses as case studies. We've used businesses that we've coached and consulted for as case studies that really lend themselves to the success of these topics. So one thing that just really I got present to was, wow, we're talking about things that we really know.
Yeah.
But it's not out of theory. It's out of practice.
Yeah. Well, we bring some theory into it because there's some reasons that these things came into play and some of the things that we teach. But it's go back to the original. The one thing that's not going to change is the experience share.
Yeah.
We're going to share from our experience things that we know. And sometimes there are people we know. We're not going to talk about who the people are necessarily, but things that went right and things that went wrong. Yeah, things that went right for me and things that went wrong.
That's right.
The mistakes that I've made. So one of the things that I'm really clear on is that I don't believe in the word failure. And I know it's a real word, but I only apply it if I didn't learn something from that mistake.
Well, no, I told you before. Right? You've heard me quote this before. I'm a fan of Conor McGregor in the UFC, and I like watching MMA. And there was a fight that he lost, and he stood in his ring and he said his coach taught him the best thing: you win or you learn. So lose is not in his vocabulary. Failure is not in his vocabulary. It's you win or you learn. And I think that was. I remember that hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like I forgot about the fight for a moment, and I just went, oh wow,
yeah.
That's huge.
So what this episode is about, what we're doing right now, is just to let you know that we do actually practice what we preach. The things that we talk about, that we come back and yes, so we teach them to other companies and do all that, but we brought that back into our own little. And this isn't a company. This is a passion project, if you will. But we bring those same techniques and theories back into what we're doing so that we can make things better going forward. And I think that's what every business should do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Every business, every nonprofit, every family, every whatever.
Yeah.
Take a look at where you've been, what got you to where you're going to, where you've gotten, what successes you've had, where things could have done better. How can we apply new processes to make things even better going forward? And actually, that's what we did. We spent a half a day doing that, and we're going to spend another few hours. Actually, right about the same time this episode airs, where our follow up is that or the day before, I think, and we'll drill down into here's what we need to do, here's who needs to do it, here's when it's done. It needs to get done, and here's how we're going to follow up. Yeah. That same philosophy applies to us that we teach other folks. So I wanted to make sure that that's a real thing. It's not just somebody up there telling folks what to do. This is stuff we practice ourselves. Yeah,
well said. Well, we appreciate you listening. We think that it was a great year. We had a ton of fun. We had a lot of beer, and we had a lot of new beer, and tasted some different beers.
We had a lot of learning.
We had a lot of learning in that front, and certainly throughout the podcast from all angles. Enjoyed the learning process. I very much enjoyed doing the podcast with you, Scott, and I'm looking forward to 2022. So I do want to wish all of our listeners out there happy holidays, a happy new year, and don't forget to strategic plan. If you haven't done it, planning is so critical for next year. And the one thing I was just going to share really quick is I'm actually going to do it with my family this year for the first time. What I've never done is the same level of planning, which I've done the personal mind map. I've done the strategic plan for multiple companies. I've led strategic plan sessions. I've moderated strategic planning. I've done all of that and realized that wow, I've never incorporated my family into, a strategic planning. So what I'd encourage everybody is that planning isn't just about the business. Planning, strategic planning for yourself. And I'm not talking about a New Year's resolution. I'm not talking about, I want to get in the gym more. I want to lose some weight. I mean, it goes way beyond that. When you talk about mapping out a strategy for yourself, you have to have a plan. You have to have very specific action items. You have to have that timeline. Assign it to yourself or whoever else needs to hold you accountable. You
also need to get in your family, everyone on the same page of what are our family values, right? Yeah. So we talk about this several times before, but there are things we value. There are things that we consider values, and then there's these core values.
Yeah.
And a family's core values, the things that we're going to do no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just as important as the business, and be clear on that, and get the input from the kids too.
Yeah.
They're part of the family. You want buy-in? You don't tell your kids what to do. You ask them what's important to them.
Yeah.
So I like that taking the strategic planning into the family. I might not sure I'd call it that. I'd come up with another name because my kids say, there goes Dad, going off on that again. But
it is what it is.
It is what it is. You're not going to change. Okay. Kids, we're doing this.
Yeah.
But I think the process works everywhere, whether you're dealing with a family, whether you're dealing with a business, whether you're dealing with a nonprofit, whether you're dealing with a startup, pre-business, right? Yeah. Know who you are. That's the culture piece.
Yeah.
Know what's your mission, what's important to you. We just have recorded a podcast that's going to air coming up with a guest, Hiro. The name of the company is Hito, and that meant people. That's a Japanese word for people. That woman knows her values. She knows what's important to her. She's going to be successful because of it.
Yeah, no question.
She's already successful, but she's going to continue to be successful because she knows that. So the culture piece, don't just go straight into the spreadsheets and the projections and the budgets and all of that.
It's all important.
All important.
Yeah.
But make sure, and which is what we spent most of our time doing, on the value piece, the values, the mission, the vision. Where do we want to be? What do we want to do?
Well, no question. So as always, we appreciate you listening and we want your feedback. Please check out the ceopodcast.net. Give us your feedback. If you've got some episodes that you'd like to hear in 2022, we want to know about it. We'd love to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly too. So if you've got feedback for us on what worked, what didn't work, and what you liked, we want to hear that as well. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and other channels, typical channels for podcasts as well. And check us out on YouTube. All you have to do is search theceopodcast.net. At this point, we'll have roughly about 26 episodes or so that are available to you. We recommend that you go back and listen to a few if you missed any. There's a lot of content there for you. And until next year, cheers.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. See you next year.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. To learn more about Scott and Vince, please visit theceopodcast.net and check out the calendar to tune in for our next episode. While on this site, you can also listen to past episodes, access additional content created for our listeners, and if you would like to dive deeper into any topic, there is an option to schedule some time with Scott or Vince. Thanks for listening.